Some of you may remember a lecture held at the National Library in the Council Chamber 12 years ago in the summer of 1996 to coincide with the publication of this volume, Anthony Jones's volume, Welsh Chapels. At that time, Anthony Jones was the rector of the College of Art in London and had previously been the director of the Glasgow School of Art and president of the Art Institute of Chicago. He subsequently returned to occupy this influential post at Chicago, continues to live there, and is today an internationally recognized authority on the development of architecture and design in the modern age. He has a long-standing interest in Welsh chapel buildings, and for many years he has been in the vanguard of efforts to promote an appreciation of the architectural importance of Welsh chapels. He has a large collection of Welsh chapel photographs and confirmed to me a few weeks ago his intention to donate this collection to the National Library. In his introduction to this volume, Welsh Chapels, Anthony Jones referred to, and I'm quoting now, Welsh streets littered with the decomposing hulks of chapels, hundreds of abandoned Bethels and Bethesdas. And he described chapel as being, and again I'm quoting, once the architectural celebrities of every street and country lane. He also described chapels as being, and again I'm quoting, without question, the national architecture of Wales, and this explains the title of this talk. He emphasised the involvement of Welsh architects, contractors, builders and craftsmen using local materials in designing, building and furnishing the vast majority of the chapels of Wales. Anthony Jones's views have been endorsed by Simon Jenkins, the journalist, author and chairman of the National Trust, in his volume Wales, Churches, Houses, Castles. He commented that chapels, and again I'm quoting, make every Welsh settlement instantly recognisable as such, in a religious pluralism replicated in no other community in Europe. John Newman, in his volume on Glamorgan in the Buildings of Wales series, referred to chapels as the building type people most readily associate with Glamorgan. It is a paradox that these positive comments on the significance of Welsh chapels are in marked contrast to views expressed in an earlier period, when adherence to nonconformist causes was far more widespread. Prominent literary figures writing in both Welsh and English were critical both of the physical nature of chapel buildings and also their powerful influence. T. Rowland Hughes, the Welsh novelist and poet, referred to chapels, and these words have often been quoted, as addoldau llwm and flychau sgwar a frosgo trwm, poor places of worship, square, clumsy, heavy boxes. Several Anglo-Welsh authors, including Caradog Evans, T. Harry Jones, Gwyn Thomas, and Dylan Thomas, emphasised the harmful claustrophobic consequences of a dominant nonconformist culture. Gwyn Thomas, who was one of the most severe critics of an all-pervading nonconformist influence, referred to marathon stints of piety that are the cultural paving stones of a Rhondda boyhood. Yet he also stated in a Welsh Eye, published in 1964, and again I'm quoting, the chapel has been a characteristic part of our idiom. Not a single artist in Wales today who in his earliest years was not made aware and communicative by the cult of self-expression developed in the teeming vestries of our valleys. The greater emphasis on chapel architecture in recent years has coincided with a dramatic decrease in the membership of the mainline nonconformist churches and the growing secularisation of Welsh society, with pluralism and diversity replacing the traditional concept of the chapel forming the bedrock of settled and cohesive communities. Welsh Chapels was published in 1996. In 1984, the National Museum of Wales published Anthony Jones's booklet, Chapels of Wales, to accompany the influential exhibition organised by the museum. Anthony Jones also presented at that time 2 extremely popular television programmes on the chapel trail, shown on HTV, which emphasised both the historical importance and deteriorating condition of many Welsh chapels. And these were shown in the exhibition Temples of Devotion, mounted at the library in 1996. Other indications of the growing awareness of the significance of chapel buildings has been the positive support of Cadw and the greater emphasis placed on them in successive volumes in the Buildings of Wales series. In 1994, Cadw published the illustrated booklet Chapels in Wales, Conservation and Conversion, and the opening sentence declared that, this again is a quotation, "The thousands of chapels built in Wales over the last 2 centuries are a quintessential part of the country's architectural heritage." Striking illustrations were presented of the external views of several chapels, and the text was prepared by John Hilling. His lecture, The Architecture of the Welsh Chapel, published in the Transactions of the Honourable Society of the Cymru in 1983, significantly contained statements that chapels rarely seem to have been taken seriously as architecture or as works of art. He also said that books on the subject of Welsh chapel architecture are almost non-existent, and chapels have been for too long treated with scorn or ignored with undeserving contempt. His own publications since 1983, that is John Hilling, include Cardiff on the Valleys, 1973, The Historic Architecture of Wales, 1979, and Cardiff's Temples of Faith in 2000. These, together with a number of other publications, have drawn attention to the threat presented to chapel buildings and have emphasised their significance in relation to the built heritage of Wales. To date, 7 volumes have been published in the series The Buildings of Wales, a series established by Sir Nicholas Pevsner, and most of these volumes are on the open shelves of the North Reading Room. If you compare the earliest one for Powys in 1979 with the latest one, Gwynedd, in 2009, you will see that there is a far greater emphasis in the latter volume placed on chapels. The earliest one, Powys by Richard Haslam, does not contain as much information on chapels, but yet Haslam described chapels as the most characteristic of all Welsh building types, usually the focal point of so many rural communities and of so many landscapes and townscapes. Another volume on Powys is currently being prepared by Robert Schofield, one of the key co-editors of the Pembrokeshire volume, and the volume for Carmarthenshire and Ceredigion, with illustrations, as shown here, of the English Baptist Church in Carmarthen, designed by George Morgan, a deacon in the church, and one of the most important Welsh chapel architects. That's the other jacket of this volume, Carmarthenshire and Ceredigion. The landmark National Museum of Wales exhibition was in 1984, and 4 years previously, a Lolfa published, that is in 1980, Capeli Cymru by Penry Jones. He discussed 109 chapels in that volume, and a similar format was adopted in the successor volume, Capeli Cymru, which was published by a Lolfa in 2005.